interesting choices facing everyone on this March turn. Remember, the rain has swollen the rivers. Now, the Egyptians have pulled back to Tyre and Acre, as well as up here to Famagusta, and they seized, I don't know, like 200 Byzants worth of treasury there that they're going to be able to pull back, as well as they can leave a unit into Famagusta. Granted, that reduces their strength, but it makes it so that it won't fall immediately, so a siege has to be undertaken, and that makes life a little harder. Godfrey tried to head up to Antioch, but because of the rainy weather, he could only move a couple of hexes from here. No supply problems. His force is small, and he can trace even through Latakia because there's no force here. There's no leader. Back to Tortosa. Otherwise, he has kind of a problem, as would Bohemond, but Bohemond's not leaving his city, in terms of, well, where else could I trace to? But they can both actually trace down to Tortosa at this point. Let's take a look here. Ademar is fine here. Raymond. Raymond can trace back this way. We have got a boat here. That's a caravan with 50 Byzants coming in. Raymond's going to be able to seize that, and he'll just get that added. His siege is pretty much a guaranteed thing. The only interesting thing here is Soakman's under siege by Robert and all the Normans, the northern Normans. And all the Syrians are here to fight him. Soakman can come out, and, well, we'll see what it does. And it's no longer winter, which means cities are going to start producing money. So if the siege is broken, that'll make some money. But also, like the Egyptians coming back here, they're going to be getting a few bucks for each of their territories. Famagusta, and wherever people are sitting, they're going to start collecting cash, which is nice, especially for some of the Crusaders. They really need it. I don't remember who, but some of them are kind of strapped for cash at this point. Gonna worry because the Mosuls are coming in soon with their big army under Kabolga, a 50 strength point army up there. That's about as big as anything on the board now. The Normans chose to commit Robert, Duke of Normandy, with his big 4 command rating for battle, which is as good as it gets for the First Crusade. And the Third Crusade, Richard has a 5. I don't think Saladin has that high. Anyway, that was sufficient to get a really good mix. Not only the coordinated attack for the Christians, which you've been seeing all the time pretty much, but unfortunately Ducoq picked or rolled the defend in place option, which worked out very poorly for him. He took something like 20% losses of his larger numbers. He's disrupted, thrown back. Robert ends up taking Tripoli as well, capturing it with the assault. So he's up a couple of points of guile and is becoming a very powerful and advantageous leader, better than Robert of Flanders with his higher guile to begin with. And I kind of counted on that, and that's why I've been pumping points of treachery or whatever into Normandy. Guess that's about it. I gotta take the economic phase here. Oh yeah, captured a couple of these leaders here, Soakman and Yagi, and I've got the choice of I can leave them in Tripoli, in which case somebody could free them. I'm seeing that I'm probably going to be fighting the Syrians more than anyone else, so I'm going to just execute them. I killed the other guy, so I'm just going to wipe out the damn infidels there. Alright, I'll just be counting up the income from everything, and then we'll move forward. And we can see this guy. He got sick and was out through a random event and was out for a little while. You can die from illness. You could just end up outside of... you'll come back with your own troops as well. So that's what's happened. Okay, here we are on the second turn of March. This is the first really good weather turn. There's going to be a long summer of good weather coming. And some events came up. I finished the plotting, but I haven't actually enacted it. But I wanted to touch on the events. First of all, some more money showed up at Famagusta. The Egyptians were able to seize it immediately. They're planning on leaving there with all that money. A Also, some money showed up here, which could have shown up at Famagusta. However, giving money to the Egyptians doesn't seem wise. The Normans got that one, and it's in a useless location. I mean, unless the Crusaders can send someone back there to grab it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Early in the game, it makes some sense to send people back from there, but at this stage, nah. We've got another caravan coming in here, but the exciting thing that happened, and the reason I spoke in here, the Sicilians got visions. What that does is two things. One, it gives them, I think, a shift in their favor in any combat or siege. Add one to the die roll on siege assaults. Or subtract one from the enemy. Now, these can be disputed by other players. Nobody really wants to in this case because the Sicilians aren't really threatening anything at all. They're just not causing a problem. But because it has some advantages which can increase your guile, for example, they're kind of interested in perhaps disputing it. So if you take a bishop, and everybody has at least one bishop, but they could lose them during the game, you can declare you're disputing it, and if you roll equal to or less than the bishop's guile, the vision's gone, and that player takes a penalty as well. He loses a point of guile. On the other side, though, if you fail to dispute a vision, your forces take dissension, and your movement is reduced by 1 for that game turn. Now, in addition to the combat shifts, I believe your movement gives you an extra hex. Now here we're in the same problem that we were in before, where you plot your movement and now you have less movement points in case you fail to dispute. Oh, that's easy enough. You just can't move your full movement allowance, and oops, you didn't plan as well as you had hoped. Or more movement points, in which case, if you can only move your plotted movement allowance, it just, it means nothing. So obviously what I do is I allow an extra movement point at the end of the plot. Possibly two if you're crossing a river, if you have the extra movement now when you wouldn't have before. Again, it obviously seems like the game was designed without this plotted movement in place, that this extra movement got tagged on at the end without any play testing. Something or another just didn't work here. It's like very disturbing to see that. And obviously one fix would be do all the movement plot after the events. And that would probably work perfectly fine. There's something I like about the events coming after the movement plots, though. This extra little shock, for example, the caravan and stuff. But, honestly, the game probably works smoother if you just flip the order of play with those. All right, let's finish this up because we got some interesting things going on this turn. Plotted movement's kind of cool because I know what's going to happen when I'm talking to you beforehand, and then it happens, and I don't know, so I can kind of foreshadow a little bit of what's going on. Anyway, Raymond's forces, Adamar here doesn't have a lot of money, so he's moving very slowly. Raymond has moved to Hama, and he's going to lay siege to that. Adamar's going to combine up with him. Now, he and Bohemond, who's left Antioch, are leaving larger forces behind because of the fear of the Moslems. Most of the Muslims I've pushed down, but the Mosul Turks are coming in with a big force, but also they have these forces here that at any time could jump in and grab valuable places like Aleppo. That makes Raymond's job really hard because he wants to get to Jerusalem. He really does want to get there. He may have to surrender this territory and go win it back. You got it pretty cheaply, but leaving guys to garrison things is dangerous as hell because it's very easy to win sieges. So, if you leave a single strength point, the siege is almost automatic. It's just a matter of time. It takes an extra turn more than just walking into an empty city. If there's a big force, though, the treachery aspect, you have such a chance of taking a big force through the treachery rules that you don't really want to ever have a big force hiding in a city. It's just too easy to take it out. That's one of the reasons you didn't see a big defense of Antioch, because there were treachery points among the Crusaders. Antioch would have fallen. Treachery points like a lance or something like that. Dukak is withdrawn from Syria. Now he's got these other guys. These other strength points here are, some of them are disrupted as well. Basically what's happened is Dukak has too many troops for Damascus. Same issue is going to be facing Godwin here, where they're going to have to spend a couple of turns cycling troops into and out of the city and moving on. My error, I thought Damascus would be big enough to hold everyone. It is a 4-area city, but a 4-area city only holds 40 strength points. And I'm over 50. I actually have too many in the stack that's in the city. I keep thinking I'm wrong there. Bohemon's taking Latakia. The Normans have grabbed Beirut and Sidon, and that means they're right up against the Fatimids now. And actually, they probably have enough strength to beat the Fatimids. So this is kind of the Crusaders are doing quite well here. Even with just really one Crusader faction leading here, and of course Raymond coming down in this direction. It looks very likely, I would say, with the forces in play, that Robert's going to be able to make it to Jerusalem. I'm not sure whether or not the Fatimids want to try to make a stand for Palestine. They can always fall back, to the southern Palestine with the, hey, we'll let you get Jerusalem. You can go through. On the other hand, if they could win, they'd be very well poised to taking that entire area. I just don't think they have the strength points, but maybe they can get lucky with the splitting of the forces to be able to take advantage of it. They also have a lot of money, but money doesn't really help you. The only thing it's really good for, you get no problems with attrition, and if you've got Armenians near you, you can start bribing them and using them. In fact, that's something Raymond's got to start considering, is whether or not he wants to mobilize some of those Armenians to help him, because otherwise he's going to have trouble. And then he gets in a bidding war with the Moslems. And the problem is Raymond is one of the poorer of the Crusader players, I think. He's sitting, well, I can always say that as long as he's not the richest. He's got $70, 64 for Godwin. The Sicilians have a number that I erased, 122, and the Normans have 112. So yeah, he's not got oodles of money. Of course, Hama actually has $21 in it. So he's got some more money coming, and if this caravan money isn't taken out of here, and I need to get a force there to take it out, there's going to be a pile at Homs too, another 50 there. So there are worthwhile things on the way. A misprint on the turn record track. I ended up taking this space. This is where the fleets should have come in. They're coming in here instead. But that's a further problem. So this is the April turn now. That's a further problem because the fleets, actually, the Christian fleets are going to show up at Adalia. They would normally show up at Famagusta, but they can't because that's controlled by the Egyptians now. So it gives them a little bit harder trip to get their fleets back into play in the game. The only thing that's really important for is retaking Famagusta. End runs and such are nice, maybe if they made an excursion into Egypt. But the thing is, nobody really wants Egypt. And there's a good reason for that. If you look here, Cairo is a level 4 city. It's worth 10 points. That's great. That's worth, as much as many other places, but it's not on the way to anything. It's way out there on its own. And the point is, a big expedition to Cairo, while it may succeed, then becomes something very far from Jerusalem that you didn't have to pass through to get to Jerusalem. You had to go out of your way to go grab it, which is one of the biggest strengths for the Fatimids, is that they're going to be sitting on essentially 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 points that no one can touch. 17 points isn't a lot, though. If the Crusaders get Jerusalem, that's 25 points. It's 10 for the Muslims, the same as any other level 4 city. But, you know, if the Syrians kind of maintain some power back here, it's not enough to win the Fatimids the game. It's just they will never be completely knocked out of the running. They'll always have some power base because there's no reason for the Crusaders to really go knock out Egypt. And that's good. It would really suck if Egypt was enough to win the game. That would justify some people's claims that the Fatimids have this unfair advantage. I don't think they do. They're just always going to be in the running. They're not going to get wiped out the way maybe the Syrians could. Okay, here we are in April. I've recorded the orders, gotten the random events, and we got another sick Crusader here, Walter of Orange, or William of Orange. Not the William of Orange, but we had an interesting situation. The Byzantines have pulled their aid. They're insulted. That means there's no longer, none of the cities that have been given to the Byzantines count as Byzantine anymore. Budimides is gone for whatever little effect he's had. We also have a vision for the Normans this time. They claim one. Adabar is saying, I dispute it. And the Normans are going to pull out of that vision. There's too much of a chance they'll lose a point of guile if they stick to the vision. And there's only a 1 in 6 chance that Adamar can fail to dispute this. Basically what we're seeing is the Normans are pushing just too far, too effectively. And the other Crusaders are unhappy about this. They would kind of like to see that Crusader army defeated, actually. End up, after movement, a couple of sieges underway. Raymond and Bohemond begin their sieges. And those are just going to succeed. The defenses are very low in both cases, I believe. 1 strength point. Which, you know, Hamas is 3 total. I've got a half siege, but you know, 3 times what? 6 to 1 on the siege assault, or 8 to 1. 24 strength points. Well, that's actually getting close. Raymond has only 39. He may not automatically succeed, but it's going to be close. But the big battle is, of course, between the Normans and the Egyptians. The Fatimids decided to throw their force into play here. Basically, the Syrians told them, look, I am not going to be able to help you. You want to defend your territory, you stop them now. I have to worry about Raymond's forces here that are coming in at what I have left. You know, if I can, it's easier to defend than to try to work together with you. Dissension could mean that we both get screwed. You've got as big a force as you can. If you want to defend Palestine, this is your time to do it. Feel free to fall back if you want, but there's nothing I can do. The only really interesting factor, Raymond won his battle, or his siege. But Robert defeated Al-Afdar or whatever. Actually, it looked like a one-sided battle. Robert had 47 strength points to 27 for the Fatimids. He's the attacker because they were already in there from the city. They sortied out of the city as part of their orders. Well, they had a defense of the city as their orders, which allowed them to sortie out in a blocking move. But that put me on the 1.5 to 1. Not quite 1.75, just barely off. Leadership, well, I used Normandy, who has that 4 leadership, versus Al-Afdal, who only has 2. That sounds terrible. But the 4 leadership caused what a Crusader's F frontal charge, as opposed to an F flank. And what did the Saracens get? don't remember what they did. I think they did a defend in place, and that combination gives you a -1. Basically, it's kind of weird because you gotta kind of look at these. Oh, no, I think I screwed up because the letters are the same. I think that should have been a +3. The defend in place is very bad against a frontal charge, huh? And the C, the coordinated charge, should have been worse than I've been saying it. Oh, well. Anyway, I gave it a -1, which is not what the chart says. I'm not going to go back. Robert ended up winning the battle, though, driving the Egyptians back. But it wasn't a clean victory. He took more casualties than he should have. I misread the chart, though, so that frontal, unfortunately, using the same letters for both is painful. So F to D, which should be what? Defend in place for the Crusaders versus a flank attack. Well, that would be bad for the Crusaders, but instead it should have been F versus D +3. Let me rework it. It was just a terrible thing for the Egyptians to even attack. So instead of this, it would be the 1, 1, 2, 3. It would be a 5, 25%. Yeah, fuck it. I'll leave it as it is. Because this game is actually beginning to devolve into something very uninteresting. And I think that's what I found most times I played it. The only interest available after a while becomes, what do the Crusaders squabble over? Kerboiga seems like this big bogeyman coming in with his 50 strength points. But 50 strength points is something I've been able to deal with. You got to be careful with the Crusaders. You can lose them due to really bad play. And I guess maybe the Muslims could just fall back in front of them and give everything up and delay the game longer and keep it interesting for longer. But really, it comes down to, okay, well, if the Crusaders win fairly easily, then it's a squabble amongst themselves, which becomes this ahistorical fantasy world, right? And the game completely supports that kind of play if the Crusaders do go forward, because now it becomes this struggle for Jerusalem, which there was a political fight for who got Jerusalem, which fits in nicely with the Guile. But man, oh man, I don't know about, the idea of the Crusaders just taking it into each other this early. Realize, 10, 15 years later, there does start to be some actual armed conflict between the different Crusader states, and a little bit more influence into it. And it's not like it didn't come close to arms a couple of times, but this game just encourages it too much. And I can understand why someone would put in, hey, the Crusaders can't attack each other. I'm playing it as close to as written as I can to try to see, because I think the game's really uninteresting if you just let the Crusaders, push forward, and the most powerful Crusader who can get the furthest gets Jerusalem, and then that's it. But I also think it's kind of uninteresting to have something go this far off the rails off of history if it ends up going there. So I may end up calling this one just as I always have before. Sometimes you call it because I've called somewhere Syria's one, though, where the Crusaders got stopped by some lucky rolls, by some bad choices on their side. And then I had the thought, well, the Moslems might fix this, and the Syrians were able to wipe the Moslems out. The one thing that remains, though, that to help is that it is possible that large amounts of troops can show up for the Muslim player. He can get reinforcements, something the Crusaders do not. Taking an ugly turn during this negotiation segment. Essentially, the rest of the Crusaders see Robert's advance as being likely to take Jerusalem and put him in an really undefeatable position. Jerusalem's worth 25 points, almost enough to assure someone a victory. The other three Crusaders are almost insisting at this point that Godfrey been to his house. What the hell? Beautiful rundown castle, but that he be made the king of Jerusalem, as was historically the case, and that they can support, the Normans taking the coastal territories here. Raymond could concentrate on this area here, which he already is more or less conceding to himself. He's going to have a trouble taking Damascus, which is important, and holding off against the danger from the Mosul Turks. Bohemond is very happy with this because he's already committed to a lesser victory. What he does not want to see happen is he definitely does not want to see the Normans have all of this. Now, his problem, though, is if you add the Sicilian stuff, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, minus 1 for Jerusalem, he's not that far ahead of what Godfrey would be getting. And likewise, Raymond is looking at 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, just as much as Jerusalem's worth. Now, Godfrey's not going to have anything but Jerusalem. And I think he had to pick 8 cities. He did anyhow, and anybody in their right mind would probably pick more than just one. He's going to, take some minuses because he's not going to get much other than Jerusalem if he gets Jerusalem. So chances are these other people are still going to come up ahead of him. The Normans, on the other hand, have a problem. Jerusalem's their only really big point thing. 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. They recognize if they don't get to Jerusalem and someone else does, or if some of these others do quite well, they're not going to be able to win the game either. So they might come to some agreement with the Fatimids here, agree with the Godfrey proposal, fine, it's his, and then not press on. Allow the Fatimids maybe to take Jerusalem. The problem with that, of course, is the base score. Jerusalem's worth 10, Cairo's worth another 10, that's 20. If the Fatimids have Jerusalem and a significant part of this area and the Egyptian territories, they're going to be the ones winning. So at this point, it's kind of okay, who do you cut deals with and what do you do? And things are really up in the air, a lot more than they historically were. I think it makes for a more interesting game, even if it starts entering the fantasy realm the way, say, Empires in Arms does. Crusaders suffered some setbacks on the random events table, some fairly heavy ones. For one, leaders trying to leave, the Sicilians had to pay, I don't remember, 40-something Byzants for a couple of their leaders trying to leave, including Tancred, I think. I don't remember. But for the Germans, Godfrey and Baldwin both abandoned the crusade. I didn't have enough money to keep either of them. The cash that the Germans have on hand, it was low, only 34. 35 would have been required to keep Baldwin around. Godfrey, there's no way I could have afforded. He's like 60, I think, to pay. So big hunks of troops have left, which is one reason you kind of want to mark off troops on your big leader in case this event happens, because that affects a minimum of one leader. So you just keep rolling until you get a leader, I guess. I don't know. Or randomize one after you go through them all and didn't get any. That may be a mistake. It may be supposed to be a maximum of one leader, but it's kind of cool the way it is. Anyway, he's just been neutered, essentially, as a power. That leaves Eustace, Count of Boulogne. He's got pretty much no chance of anything. The negotiations had come down to the Normans agreeing to the demands of the other Crusaders. But Godfrey was basically told, yeah, well, it's up to you. You fight your way through then. I'm not going any further. I'm going to take Acre probably, but that's it. You're going to be the vanguard if you want to be king of Jerusalem. And, well, he and Baldwin said, "Ah, fuck that, man." So now Eustace is proposed to be the guy who's supposed to enter Jerusalem, but nobody's really supporting him at all. Raymond, we'll see where he goes, but he doesn't want to push through Damascus to help someone else get to Jerusalem, and likewise the Normans aren't going to do that. Bohemond's happy as a clam about all this. He's fine with it. So we'll see what happens after the movement. I'll tell you one thing I know is happening. The Egyptians are sailing out of here and abandoning Tyre to the Normans. Okay, here we are in the May 1st turn, and we've got Kerboga and his big force coming in. They're going to come in with 10 treasury. I'm actually out of treasury markers. This is causing a significant problem in the game. And there's something weird in the rules where a treasury in a city doesn't count as a treasury unless it's at least 10 gold, but and you can't spend money from it. But most city treasuries are going to have troops assigned to them because there has to be a leader there in order to affect them. And you also have treasuries that aren't assigned to those, which can spend money, as far as I can tell, perfectly fine. I'm not allowing it unless they have a commander with them, a force with them. But usually cities have a force around their treasury as well, because otherwise they can't collect money. So you tend to move that money around from city to city to protect it, among other things. And the game has sort of this... I tried making some house rules to allow cities with a treasury to collect income, which kind of made sense, but it only really just made more bookkeeping in a game where I'm already doing a lot of writing and erasing anyway. So I didn't do that this time. But there is another ambiguity in the rules there, just tons of them here. And I hack on it about that, but really games like Pax Britannica, which aren't as ambiguous in the rules but have their kind of problems that fall out from it, as in, timing and stuff like that. How do you handle that? That are as big a flaw, and those are great games. So I don't know. All right, so what happened here? Some exciting stuff. I haven't resolved the bidding yet. A lot of bids were put down. The orders, you can see, have gotten more complicated, especially for the Crusaders than anyone else. But with the Mosul Turks coming in, that throws a whole wrench in the entire play of things. Now, remember, they've had a few forces up here and grabbed some Armenians, but they don't have, a lot of military presence, so they've been pretty much hiding so far in the game. So, let's see. For the random events, which we have taken care of, there have been 2 assassination attempts. One on someone over here that failed. Al-Afdal took a hit to his guile because of that. The other one was a successful one against the guy in Aleppo. Now, assassinations work differently from everything else. For Crusader assassinations, if a Crusader is assassinated, his troop, there are other things that allow this too. The Jerusalem issue. If somebody doesn't take Jerusalem, some of their troops defect to other sides. But in this case, I've had to draw in extra boxes to make up for this dude, Raimbald, Count of Orange, who was killed. The biggie, though, is that Aleppo is empty. I distributed those troops, some of them into Hama and Harank, 1 each, and the rest into the leaders over in Homs, which doesn't bother the muscles at all. That's going to just fall, and it's kind of far from where they're going. All right, but we've got the bribes. Now, the bribes are just secretly plotted and then resolved by money. We've got a few here. So the Sicilians bribed Ocean and Constantine. Constantine is owned by the southern Normans here, and Ocean is a newbie, and they want to get some more force. They're beginning to feel very weak with what they're intending to do, which is taking Famagusta. They're sending guys up to get the money. You'll see it all happen when it happens. Okay. But at the same time, the Southerners bribed Ocean. They did not bribe Constantine. So they're going to lose Constantine, but the bribe of Ocean is going to cancel out. That's $5 each. Likewise, the Mosuls threw a protective bribe of $10 on this Thoris, sounds like a dwarf, who's over here. But the Southerns threw $15 to him and 10 to each of these two. So I'm not going to allow them to move them. They can't write orders for them this turn. but it does allow them to run 1 hex away to get out of the way of a potential dangerous place. But they're going to pull out. And that kind of changes the nature of things. The problem is these Armenians are going to cost you a lot of money each turn, because if you don't bribe them and your opponent does, he gets them. So they can just be neutralized, or they can have their money sucked down this way. And, well, we'll see how it all turns out. But as we said, Thoris is going to probably run over to Birjik and try to, save himself there temporarily. Other people, we'll see who goes where and what happens. And at the end of all of this, we have the Normans moving down, preparing to siege Al-Afdal. He's going to probably try to slip away in a boat again, assuming he has enough naval capacity to transport him. It looks like actually he's outnumbered there, so he may actually be in danger, because I didn't move a boat into place for him. Silly me. You see, Bohemond has sent Tancred out here to start a siege on Famagusta. Dukak is moving forward. He might actually be able to support the Egyptians for a final attack. That may be the only real solution to the Norman problem. Meanwhile, Raymond, well, he takes Homs. Great, there was 100 Byzants there, which helps pay for a huge 40 Byzant bribe that he paid out to the Armenians. But Kerboga has moved in to get the other Raymond here, Raymond La Forez, at Hama. And Balduk was able to walk into Aleppo for free and just take it. It had 30-something Byzants in it. So money is significantly a problem for the Mosuls, but it's also one kind of for Raymond, because he just paid out so much. And some of the other leaders, obviously the Germans, didn't have enough cash to keep their key leaders in present. Speaking of which, Eustace is wandering his way down. He's got some hope of maybe hooking up with his boat somewhere down here and maybe doing a quick end run to get him to Jerusalem more easily. There's a lot of empty cities down here. If he chooses well, he may get it. But if he chooses poorly, Robert's going to drive the Fatimids into the area that he needs to get through. Of course, then he can just walk through whatever Robert picks. There's no reason Robert should pay any attention, should help Eustace here. He should probably try to whack him. This triple alliance of Eustace, Raymond, and Bohemond, well, it's not really that effective. Raymond's got his own problems, Bohemond's weak, and Eustace is weak. So what it comes down to is the Normans are going to say, well, hell, I'm in this for my own. If I can knock the Fatimids out, then I have to worry only about the Syrians. We are beginning to see some attritional losses, though, taking a really heavy toll on the Crusaders. And they don't get troops back. It is possible for the Muslim powers to all get some troops back. We had 5 strength points show up at one point. Nothing major yet, but it's possible to see 15s and 20s here in a number of these cities. So there's this... That gets reduced, though. As the Crusaders take more and more cities, it becomes impossible for the Muslims, or less likely for the Muslims, to get their reinforcements that they want to get. This is why the Mosuls are so powerful, because they come in, they sweep things at this point, and they may get the reinforcements that otherwise would have gone to a different power. It's second turn of May here, and this is after random events and movement. And again, the movement plots are getting complex, especially with the Mosuls in the game. That's really destroying the sort of stability that had existed before. Bohemond sent his guy from Iconium up there, and he seized, I don't remember whose money that was. I think it was Norman money. So he's got $50 more. He can use that for bribes and such not. He can also haul it back home, which is what he really wants to do. I'm kind of worried about cash with the situation of grabbing Famagusta. I feel like I'm going to have the ability to kind of direct what the different Crusaders do. So if I can seize more cash, that'll give me more power, and maybe I can buy a city with a big hunk of cash or something. Just kind of stand there recalcitrant and not allow anyone else to get cash. That may backfire. If the Crusaders start doing well, they may have to turn against Bohemond in exchange because of what he may start doing. Over here, we're going to have our first naval battle. We'll touch onto that. I couldn't get the Egyptians out. They didn't have enough boat power, so they sailed an extra boat in here, and they actually have the majority of boats against the Normans. The Normans are doing a siege as well, and that may end up a treachery siege. We'll see. Dukak ran back. This was the big thing. He couldn't make it. Sidon and Tyre were preventing him from being able to slide through, and Lake Tiberias made it impossible. So he just withdrew back to Damascus. His initial plan had been to raid this northern coast. He wants to see what happens here. It was worth this little delay to blank around a little bit and try to figure out what's going on. He should have never moved in the first place. But you got to kind of keep moving, because the way the attrition rules work, if you spend 2 turns in one space and you're over the population, like in this space, the city can hold 40. Well, that's what Dukak has. So you'd have to send Tokton away to go somewhere else to survive. And that just didn't... Nowhere seems safe except Damascus right now. However, Raymond and really all the forces that he could muster, including yep, that's it. Raymond and the guy from Harankin, if anybody was in Aleppo, have all kind of gathered here. No, Aleppo had already fallen. For a showdown against what turns out to be the siege that Kerboga started. Well, all the Mosuls also went there, although this guy left from way up here. He's made it down to Aleppo. There's a caravan coming at Aleppo, so that'll give the Mosuls money. They really need money badly. They're very short on cash, which has allowed the southern Normans to lay siege to Edessa and to move some Armenians around. You'll see also Bohemond has some Armenians on his side now. Those are so fickle. I mean, somebody bids on them, you lose them, basically. All right. We haven't done a naval combat yet. So let's take a look at how this is going to work. It's not too exciting. The only tricky part is figuring out who attacked. Yeah, the Fatimids... No, that's Fatimid controlled. The player with the most naval strength is the attacker. So we've got a 2-to-1 attack here, and there's nothing fancy at all here. We just use the naval combat table, which I have to find. There it is. Oh, it's not really 2-to-1. It is more complicated than I thought. I forgot about how this works, yeah. So it's 4 strength points against 2, so I'm at +2, plus another for 2-to-1, so the Fatimids are going to roll on the 3 table. And they get a 4, which means they're going to do 10% casualties and a retreat to the enemy. And that's pretty easy to resolve. The Pisans take a hit and retreat back. Okay, well, Kerboga was soundly defeated. He had a bad roll for his command roll, and Raymond got a good one, but Raymond's not a bad leader. Raymond's a 3 leader, got a good roll, frontal charge here. But Kerboga ended up with one of these damn orderly withdrawals, and those do not help. I gave him, maybe it was a C, because I think I gave him a +3. And that would be the only thing. Or else I cheated. Anyway, Kerboga ended up taking 20% loss as a retreat. He's disrupted. He's not in good shape. I thought this might be the end of Raymond as a force. But the Crusader armies always have these big advantages. Kerboga is about as good as it gets for the Muslims. Over here, Robert has a siege. Now, both players have this tricky situation. They both hold treachery points. They both know the other probably has some with where they are. Robert is going to spend one, because if it works, he wins. Alafdal, though, is actually spending 2. This is done secretly, because this is the only way he can withdraw from his territory. He can maybe get some more later, but he wants to make sure he survives this. So both spend them. That means there's no chance of treachery, because Alafdal matched, or in this case actually exceeded, Robert's. But they're all spent, and it just means the siege doesn't happen. But we do something new, which we haven't done before, which is a siege attrition table roll. And in this case, well, we're in good terrain here. So Robert rolls a 5. He's fine. If he got one of these asterisks, I would have to figure out how to mark that terrain's degraded a little bit. Alafdal's in the city, and he's going to lose a man. And I'll mark that off. Famagusta should go pretty much automatically to Tancred. They're going to be 3 strength points. I don't know what Tancred... Tancred doesn't have that much. He's only got like 3 to 1 on him. He's doing a full siege, but he's only got like 10 strength points. Let me see if he has... He does not have the option to try for treachery. So, he needs a 6 to succeed. And he gets it. Lucky him. That actually, there was a bonus to that because of the fleet present blockading it. So I think it was a 5 or 6. Anyway, that's gonna make Famagusta fall to him. And over here, well, I just have to take care of the losses.